Call to order a public hearing pertaining to the Fifth Amendment to the annexation agreement pertaining to the Vineyard subdivision at the southeast corner of Rab Road and Airport Road. Please call the roll.
Mayor Coos?
Here.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Here.
Mr. Nord?
Here.
Ms. Smith?
Here.
Ms. Cummings?
Here.
Mr. Preston?
Here.
Mr. McCarthy?
Here.
Is there anyone present wishing to speak pertaining to the Fifth Amendment to the annexation agreement pertaining to the Vineyard subdivision? Is there anyone here wishing to speak pertaining to the Fifth Amendment to the annexation agreement pertaining to the Vineyard subdivision? And I'm required to ask this 3 times, final time. Is there anyone here wishing to speak pertaining to the Fifth Amendment to the annexation agreement pertaining to the Vineyard subdivision? Motion for dismissal?
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Mr. Nord?
Aye.
Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Ms. Cummings?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mayor Coos?
Aye. We'll start our regular meeting in about 2 minutes. We'll have to wait till 7 o'clock to start. Please call the roll.
Mayor Coos?
Here.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Here.
Mr. Nord?
Here.
Ms. Smith?
Here.
Ms. Cummings?
Here.
Mr. Preston?
Here.
Mr. McCarthy?
Here.
We'll begin with a pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have no public commenters tonight, and I'm going to rearrange the agenda here a little bit. We've got some young ones that are going to present, and I thought we'd give them the opportunity to go first. I'm sure they've got homework and other things to do instead of sit through a lengthy meeting. So we will be taking the presentation on the Vision Plan 2045.
Oh wait, now it is. Okay, super. Thank you. Nice to see everybody. So as you can see on your screen, we're speaking of Vision 2045. Since 1990, the town has asked an appointed group of citizens to create a vision plan every 5 years. These citizens ponder what our community will be like 25 years into the future. The vision plan also serves as a reference point for various community-wide plans and initiatives. As noted in your council report, vision plan participants have historically come from backgrounds diverse in profession, length of residence in our community, and level of civic engagement. Age diversity among vision plan participants has been strong from those in early adulthood through retirement. Due to circumstances relating to the COVID-19 pandemic, the town's traditional approach to updating the vision plan was unavailable in 2020 and 2021. This prompted town staff to come up with a new concept, asking some of our youngest residents to create the first ever youth-led visioning process. These youth were participants in the STEAM camp run by the Children's Discovery Museum, courtesy of Rachel Carpenter, the Teen Adventure Camp with Matt Fromm in the Parks and Rec Department, and the summer reading program with Laura Golashevsky at the Normal Public Library. The charge that they gave these youth was to create pieces of artwork showing what they hope our community would look like in 25 years, a vision for 2045. The youth of today are living in a completely different world than the world of my youth or of yours. They are growing up in a world of smartphones, Nest doorbells, GPS trackers, partially autonomous vehicles, commercial flights into outer space, online shopping, and hoverboards. They also have spent the past 2 years living through a historic pandemic, spending a significant amount of time at home, away from friends, learning remotely, and absorbing quite a bit of negativity from the world in general. But notwithstanding these challenging circumstances, our youth, ranging in age from 3 to 15, put together a beautiful future for Normal. The full vision plan is included in the council packet, but I'd like to run through just a few images that represent the breadth of thinking that these youth brought to the visioning process. We have 3 of them here tonight with us. We have siblings Avery and Connor Rome and Dhruv Ravanuthala. I'll have them say a few words when we get to their pieces of art. But first, let's start with the Normal Public Library. As you know, the library keeps reading top of mind for families across the community through the summer reading program. When we asked them to envision Normal in 2045, these participants created art showing houses and cars with solar panels, and naturally a go-kart track for fun, hovering bicycles and phones with somehow even more advanced camera technology, a world that could be colorful and bright or dark and dull, depending on how people help the world, hovering cars so that you can sleep on your morning commute, and we saw many rocket houses with robot assistants and even flying shoes. The kids from the Children's Discovery Museum's program this past summer, their STEAM camp, which of course stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, Art, and Math, they envisioned a future having a children's hospital that is colorful, cheerful, and helpful, with many places to walk and visiting dogs. Movable houses, so people can travel with their house anytime they need, noting that the houses need to be colorful and sparkly. Neighborhoods that could be built with fountains, schools for all ages, grocery stores, and a swimming pool, but no cars. Everyone would have to park their car on the edge of the neighborhood and walk in. A lot of pet recommendations for the future. This would be a pet park with a fish pond, a dog tunnel, a dog seesaw, trying to picture that, a tennis ball shooter, and a cat tower. And one of our youth would like to have ninja houses where you have to go through an obstacle course before you enter the front door. So it will certainly be a fun future for some of these folks. 2 of our grade schools are here tonight, as I mentioned, Avery and Connor, and they would like to describe the pieces of art they did. So if Avery and Connor want to come up and sit here at those 2 chairs for just a sec, and I will take you to Avery's piece of art first. And if you want, you can take off your mask and just kind of like lean forward into the mic so everyone can hear you. That would be great.
So in my piece, I wanted to show how in the future we will have lots of colors and everyone will be smiling because I made the people all smiling from ear to ear. I also made the houses colorful with pretty designs to show that the people inside are very happy and joyful.
Thanks, Avery. And she's now 10, by the way. She's not 9 anymore. And then Connor, if you'd like to talk about your piece of art.
In the year 2045, I would like all the homeless people to have a home and to have warmth, food, and have a place to sleep before we get into all the technology and electronic things like holograms. So all the people that are homeless don't have to be jealous of all the other people.
Thanks very much. That's very nice of you. We're glad that you both participated and contributed your art, and we'll be saving it in the town clerk's office for forever. So your work will have an impact for people in years to come. So if you want, you can go back and sit with your folks who are also here tonight, Mr. and Mrs. Rome. Thanks, guys. We also had the Teen Adventure Camp participate. At this camp, park staff challenged junior high and high school students to ponder a future 25 years in the future. They envisioned many practical things, including a Bitcoin bank, shopping malls where you can park your flying car and a robot would come bring you whatever you had purchased, so lots of robot delivery. Also, these youth expect to see agriculture continue to be an important part of our community in the future. Seventh grader Dhruv Ravanuthala is here with his folks, as I mentioned. Dhruv, if you'd like to come up and grab a seat. Joined by his parents and his sister, also joined via YouTube by family members in India, which is yet another aspect of the world that would have been almost unimaginable when the town's first vision plan was drafted in 1990, but which seems completely normal to young people today. So Dhruv, would you like to say something about the youth part or the teen part of this?
Hi, my name is Dhruv Ravinuthala, and I'm a 7th grader at Chittix Junior High School. I was at the Teen Adventure Camp run by Normal Parks and Rec, and it was really fun when I got to work on a vision plan project. But I was really surprised that apparently this is one of the first time kids have actually been able to give feedback on the town. But I was really happy that they decided to do it this year. And I just want to say a few things that I hope to see in the town in the next 25 years, which include more wheelchair accessible type playgrounds so people in wheelchairs can still have fun at like recess and things. Ways to loan sports equipment at town parks if people don't have it with them. More environmentally friendly buildings in the town like the city hall. More cultural art showings in the town. More funding for schools so they can have field trips and athletic opportunities more often. And last but not least, a big one is more monarch butterfly gardens. I actually work at the zoo as a volunteer, and I'm exposed to a lot of animals that are endangered, but there's not really any that are really as prevalent in our community as the monarch butterfly, which I really want to see get a higher population and teach the public about. Those are the things I hope to see. It's pretty crazy to think about, but I'll actually be 37 in 25 years, and I hope some of these changes are actually made by then. Thank you for listening, and thank you for letting me have the opportunity to give feedback on our town.
Thanks, Dhruv.
I'll be looking forward to your run for mayor.
Yeah, let's all talk about I'm going to tell you how old I'll be in 25 years. So overall, what you have heard tonight and what you've seen in the full vision plan is a future normal that residents and visitors will love for its amenities, its character, and its community spirit. This ties back perfectly to a main point in the first vision plan, which again was written in 1990. The quality of life will be one of the keys to normal success in the future. The authors of that plan emphasized that by 2015, communities would be competing for people and that quality of life would be a main determinant in attracting and retaining the human resources that will be so essential to the successful city of the 21st century. Lacking seashores, mountains, and a sunbelt climate, normal by necessity must strive to attain the highest possible quality of life in order to convince individuals that this is indeed the place they should choose to live, work, raise a family, find their passion, and retire. And that's pretty much straight out of the 1990 plan. So to close, I will simply say thank you so much for your support of this youth-led initiative. It was a lot of fun for staff, great time for us to collaborate, and also thanks to all the youth who opened their hearts and their minds to our visioning process. Thanks.
Well, thank you to all the young people that chose to join this and be part of the vision. And you do have a vision for your future, and it's a bright one, so thank you for that. Other council comments or Ms. Cummings?
Since we are opening up for comments, I want to say that I'm just impressed with the work that was done and the vision that many of the students have for the future. Some of them, are those things that we think about, and some of them are not, but I think we should be thinking about. as we are evolving as a community. But certainly to Connor, Avery, and Drew for being here tonight and speaking and sharing your thoughts and your vision. And we hope that you're here to see your visions come to pass. As even 25 years from now, we won't talk about how old I'll be.
Ms. Lorenz.
I was really impressed by a number of the themes that the young people put forth. For the first boy, I think, who said something about concern for homelessness and housing. That's an issue that we talk about, affordable housing and the availability of housing. So that was very astute of you to be thinking about that. I also was struck by just the sense of desire for a good place to live. And I think that does hark back to the 1990 plan. So I would really like to see in future efforts like this that we continue to bring the children into it. And to the young man who said, why haven't you up until now? Well, I don't know. So it's a good point. And I think that there are nuggets in here and that are really quite valuable. And then the last point I'll make is that maybe the hovercrafts will cause us to not have to have potholes. And then we won't have to resurface the roads all the time. Where's my public works people? Huh? This could be like life-changing. No snow plowing. Oh my goodness. So anyway, thank you.
Mr. McCarthy?
I'll try not to be too redundant of my colleague. She and I had very similar thoughts, but first, thank you. And congratulations on coming to a town council meeting and talking. That's kind of a big deal. I wasn't nearly as well thought out or as articulate as you are at this age. So hopefully not only are you willing to continue to give us feedback, but you'll keep engaged in our community over the years. Some of the thoughts and ideas might sound a little out there today, but who would have thought we could have done what we could do with these things today? So really appreciate your willingness not only to participate, but come out. And I know we've had some youth in the past participate, but not like this undertaking. And I echo the let's continue to engage young people as much as we can going forward, whether that's integrated as the overall process or occasionally a youth only or a youth led or an addendum to a youth led version of the plan. So thanks very much, staff, for the idea and coming up with, and all the kids for thinking about us.
Mr. Nord and then Ms. Smith.
Yes, thank you very much for coming. I too am eager to see more of the youth involved. A lot of the decisions that we make as a council, when we make those, if we're going to be taking out debt for those, you guys will be the ones paying for that. Our generation will just be paying interest. So you guys really should be involved in our decisions because, like you said, Ravi, in 25 years, you're going to be 37. Is that what you said? Yeah. So, you will be right there paying for all of our decisions. And something that I liked hearing was, Connor, you put the needs of the homeless before the wants of us that can afford, some of these high-tech things. I think that's very responsible. So kudos for that. And Ravi, was it Ravi or Connor talked about the monarch butterflies? Ravi? So the USDA office for McLean County is here just north of Fort Jesse. And if you go in there, talk with them. There are monarch butterfly preservation areas around. They're usually on the outskirts of towns, or the outskirts of town, but you can go there and they're many acres large. And when they're flying, it's very neat to see because you will see, millions of them. And there are some other folks in town that I hope are watching. And, they like to go out to these things too. So if you're interested in talking with other folks that are interested in the same thing, contact me and I'll put you in touch with them. And Avery, yes, I think it's a great goal that we do have people just getting along. We don't always have to agree, but we should be able to just get along. So thank you very much. And yes, I would love to see the youth be more involved. Thank you.
Ms. Smith?
Thank you to the three for your presentation, but thank you to your parents for encouraging children to have imagination and to get involved in this way. I think it was very prescient of the original vision plan that recognized the challenge of in a Midwestern town on attracting and keeping citizens here. And at the recent Chamber of Commerce gala, someone commented that more than anything, we want Normal to be what our children and grandchildren call home. And I think the reminder that in 25 years, you will be at your prime, and some of us will not. I think it should give us the perspective to make decisions that not just consider the present, but the future. And I'm so grateful to hear young persons like yourselves that are concerned about inclusivity. It's wonderful. Thank you.
And to wrap it up, Mr. Preston?
Happy to, thanks. There are not many people who can come to council meetings and go from being the last item on the agenda bumped up to the first. So congratulations to you three on that, and I'm glad you were. Thank you for being interested and for being active, and thank you for the ideas that you put forth, focusing on other people, focusing on a larger community beyond just yourself. I'm glad that my colleague, Ms. Smith, mentioned the parents, because I think that the supportive family and those that are around you is crucial. And it looks like you three, if your generation is reminiscent of you three, we're all in good hands 25 years from now. But stay interested and stay active. Thanks.
And again, thank you for participating, and thank you for being here tonight. It was a great experience for us as well as it was for you. We'll move to the omnibus agenda. Items considered routine and will be handled with one vote unless a council member would like to pull an item for discussion. Mr. Nord?
I'd like to pull item B, C, and D.
Was that D as in dog?
Yes.
Thank you.
Move approval.
Second.
Items considered for the omnibus are approval of the minutes of the regular council meeting of February 7th, 2022, and a resolution to award the bid for water main and service line materials to Water Products Company of Bloomington, Illinois. Please call the roll.
Excuse me, I had pulled D.
I'm sorry?
I had pulled B, C, and D.
Oh, you pulled them all?
No, just B, C, and D.
These dividers don't help. So items considered are approval of the minutes of the regular meeting and a resolution authorizing a license agreement with Illinois State University for parking services. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Lorenz,
Aye.
Mr. Nord,
Aye.
Ms. Smith,
Aye.
Ms. Cummings,
Aye.
Mr. Preston,
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy,
Aye.
Mayor Coos.
Aye. Those items are approved. Item B is a report to receive and file town and normal expenditures for payment as of February 16th, 2022. Mr. Nord?
I so move.
Second.
Mr. Nord?
Thank you. On PDF page 14, there's one voice trip expenses. There's several of those. Could you explain to the public what this expense is for? Is this lodging? Is this flights? And what's the purpose of the trip? What's the ask that we're going out for?
Sure. I can talk about that briefly in terms of that particular expense. This year, the One Voice trip, which is an annual trip coordinated by the Economic Development Council of Bloomington Normal, is scheduled for next week. Those representing the town are Councilmember Lorenz, Mayor Coos, and myself, which ordinarily we do have mayor, city manager, and a council member participate. The group consists of usually 20 plus individuals from the community, again coordinated by the Economic Development Council. The projects that the group goes out to advocate for are pre-selected by the Economic Development Council. Those projects consist of a Bloomington Normal Water Reclamation District project, capital project. Another project affects rural water and sewer services for the rural McLean County community. The other project pertains to a CIRA capital investment, the Central Illinois Regional Airport. And the fourth project pertains to Heartland Community College workforce development initiatives. And so we will go out there as a group representing our community and advocating for those projects. And the expense pertains to lodging, does not include travel.
Are there any town and normal specific projects that's going to be in the ask?
Not this year. It's called One Voice because we go as a community to advocate for the community.
Okay. Just a question on that then. With COVID, we've all learned to be able to use virtual meetings.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that not an option this time? Because with all those schedules, that seems hard to manage a getaway for that long, and it would save taxpayers. Well, if there's 20 people going out, $1,600 times 20 people.
I think I can
Why does that
address.
need to be face-to-face?
Taxpayers are paying for 3 people representing this organization to go.
I assume
it's
the
made-
Wilmington taxpayers are paying for Wilmington, and
I
Inward
don't know. I don't
taxpayers.
represent the Bloomington taxpayers. I'm just talking about the town of Normal. And as I mentioned, it's an Economic Development Council initiative. It's not a normal initiative. Mayor Coos will respond.
There seems to be some question about what meetings will be virtual and what meetings will be in person, but we've been pretty much assured that we can meet with our 2 congressmen and our 2 senators in person. And we have been doing this for 15 years or so now. We go in every year. Lots of projects have been delivered, projects for the town of Normal, projects for the city of Hayworth and Lexington. It's a community coming together to ask for projects that benefit our community.
okay. In the future, I'd like to see if we could try and reduce that cost a little bit. I know that our senators and representatives have got offices in state, so if somehow we could coordinate that or do virtual just to save taxpayers going forward.
Okay, I'll share that with Economic Development Council because this is their program. So
Sure,
I
and
can
I
pass that
understand
on.
it's like way too late to change
I will
it
be
now.
candid, Mr. Nord, that's not going to happen. So let's just put that on the table right now. That is not going to happen.
Trying to save taxpayers' money is not going to happen.
You have further
do.
questions on the bills?
Also on PDF page 14, uptown rent, it's usually around $36,400. Now it's almost $46,000, so a $9,500 increase. Could you explain the increase? Is this something we're going to see every month, or
No.
what is it?
It's the one time a year invoice that includes the annual payment for, it's kind of what we refer to as just the true up of expenses for common area maintenance, taxes, and the like. It's one time a year that's reflected.
Okay, so we're paying property taxes on top of our rent and common area maintenance?
Yes.
Okay. Almost 3 years ago, the council had a meeting where we had a priority to try and get out of One Uptown. What's the status of that?
I've communicated that with council in emails, and Mayor, do you want to continue on down that path
No.
of this conversation?
No, if a council member doesn't call a point of order, I'm calling it. We're here to talk about the bills. We're not here to talk about past council decisions.
Okay, then my comment on this is we talked about 3 years ago to try and reduce this bill, and it's now getting higher. So I'd like to get back to what we talked about 3 years ago and address that. So thank you. That's all the questions I have for the expenses.
Mr. McCarthy?
Thanks, Mayor. For those not familiar with the One Voice project, I just want to speak to that since we've are giving latitude tonight to go off the specific agenda item. So I sat in a meeting on a one voice trip with FRA, and we were talking about the underpass project, and we weren't successful at that point on our grant application, and it was fascinating to interact not with the legislators, ours, but the actual departments that were issuing grants. And they were very helpful in educating us on how to have a better, stronger ask. And they were very surprised to hear how far we had been, that we'd gone through NEPA already, and that there was an elected official sitting at the table with them, and that's how important this project was. And so to the community, that particular project resulted in a $16 million grant from the federal government. That's not going to happen every time we go to Washington, D.C. That took, I don't know how many trips before I was sitting in that room to get to that point. But that's the nature of this, is the community going to Washington, D.C. to talk to the federal departments that issue grants, that support projects on a municipal level, is what happens. Them seeing community members from Bloomington Normal year after year after year know that we're serious about investing in our community, that we're serious about its development, enough to show up at their doorstep every year to talk about what's important to our community. And so from my estimation, this is a very small price to pay to go and let Washington, D.C. know that we're very serious about our community and that we really do need their support, and we need our tax dollars coming back from the federal government back to our community to do infrastructure projects. So very supportive and happy that we have council representation going to advocate for those projects. Thanks, Mayor.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Nord?
No.
Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Ms. Cummings?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
Aye. The item is approved. Item C is a resolution to award the bid for water main and service line materials to Water Products Company of Bloomington, Illinois. Mr. Nord?
I so move.
Second.
Mr. Nord?
So my understanding for this is we're not actually spending money now. We're just making this an approved vendor so we can spend money with them throughout the year. Is that essentially what it is?
Pretty much, yes. We're asking council to authorize this to be the vendor we work with for our water product materials.
Okay. And we didn't have any other bidders with this.
Correct.
How long has this been being bid out over the past years without another bidder bidding on it?
Seems like I thought I saw that in the report somewhere. I'm not sure. I'd have to take a quick look at the report to see how many years that's happened. Is there a concern with water products?
No, it's not with the company. It's that this is essentially we don't have another bidder.
Okay.
Is this, like, do they sell a product that other local communities don't use? I mean, is this the only vendor within a significant distance of Bloomington Normal?
Well, it's as it states in the report, I think it indicates we notified 6 particular vendors and sent the materials to 6 vendors who could provide the materials we need, and only 1 responded. So have I interviewed Water Products and to find out why they're the only ones, or interviewed the others to find out why they haven't? No. But I believe Water Products is the most convenient to Normal, and they keep most in stock because we have a delivery requirement. When we need our materials, they have to be able to guarantee that they will deliver them within a certain period of time, and they apparently are the ones who can make those delivery requirements and provide the materials we need, and the others apparently choose not to or can't.
Okay, I'm still not comfortable with having no bids come through next year. I would like to see some more effort put forward to find out why people aren't bidding on this. We've had this conversation come up with like asphalt work as well. So this isn't just water. This is a reoccurring thing. If we don't have bids, I'm going to ask this question, or other people will, because other people have asked similar questions.
Understood. I think we had this conversation last year as well. your concern about one vendor. Even if we knew why others weren't submitting a bid, we can't make them submit a bid. So I don't know if council chooses to not accept a single bid situation.
I'm not
then we would
asking-
just go out and randomly purchase our materials.
No, I'm asking to pick up the phone and call and ask why other folks aren't bidding on this.
Okay.
Seek other bids, so we can go back to our constituents and say, look, we did have other bids. We went out of our way to make sure we had competitive bids, so we can give you, an honest, competitive.
Sure. I guess my point was, if they still choose not to submit a bid, then we'll come in with only a single bid. And I don't know if council, would you be acceptable with just one bid in the future?
If you
Even
came in,
others-
yes, if you came back and you said, we talked to these other several vendors, and they all said that they would not bid, and they gave us reasons why, then yes. But if we're just going to assume that they didn't want to because we thought they couldn't or they weren't capable, those aren't things that I want to make assumptions on.
Okay, I'm just saying for staff time, for the rest of the council's awareness, we send the materials to the potential bidders, and we generally don't, as a practice, follow up with each of the potential bidders. But if that's how council desires in order to make a decision, we can consider that in the future. But for now, I guess we'll just offer this one single bid.
I'll make two observations. As a business owner, Mr. Nord, I tend to have opportunities to bid and choose not to. And my response to you would be, it's none of your business why I'm not submitting a bid, so don't ask me.
To speak for
Mr. Nord, you're out of
taxpayers,
order.
I've got a
Mr.
point
Nord, you're out of
personal-
order. I have the floor at
because
this
you
point.
called me out personally,
Mr.
so
Nord,
I do request that I can answer.
I'm sorry?
I said you called me out personally, so I do respectfully request that I can answer.
No.
I
Sorry,
can't.
no.
You can call me out personally and denigrate me, and I can't
I
respond.
just made an opinion, Mr. Nord. The other thing I find kind of unusual is you're such an advocate for local businesses, and now we have a local business bidding on this. And you're not
Point of
comfortable
order.
with that.
Point of order. If you're going to call me out personally, then at least let me respond.
I'm just
Otherwise,
making
it's
some
just being a
observations,
bully.
Mr. Nord. Ms. Smith?
Ms. Reese, in my questions to you, I was asking whether or not this arrangement that we have through this water supplies contract does lock in some pricing. Can you elaborate on that?
I'm not sure. What are you looking for?
Well, in terms of price increases are a topic of conversation because of
Sure.
inflation. So with this contract in place, are there certain supplies that the vendor will not pass along any increases to the town?
Sure. The bid that was submitted by Water Products identifies all the materials that we are looking for. They've allocated a price to those materials, and that price is good for the duration of this contract.
Okay, so we have provided a protection to the town from price increases for the next 12 months on a
these
necessary supply that the water department needs.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Cummings?
Yes, I actually have more of a question because and it's going back to the conversation prior to Ms. Smith. My understanding is anything of the nature where we're changing policy, it has to be a collective and it has to be placed on the agenda. So for us to have one person create policy, I think we need to clarify that because it sounded like, and Ms. Reese, you can clarify that you took note of that, but I think that is something we have to decide as a body and that you can't take that away as a directive. Am I clear on that?
Well, your point is taken that a request is noted, but it's up to the body collectively to make that kind of change.
Thank you for the clarification.
Mr. McCarthy?
Thanks, Mayor. I'll start with that. I had a point on that is if I'm not mistaken, that's an operational decision by staff. Certainly we have the ability to weigh in, but I concur with my colleague is that's, a group discussion, not any one of us individual members. Process question, Ms. Reese, I think, if I may. The successful bidder, were they aware that nobody else bid?
After the fact,
But
yes.
before submitting their bid, before their bid was received, were they
I
aware?
don't think so.
Okay.
I don't know that we have any idea of knowing what bidders know about their counterparts and their
Right.
competition. I don't know, but
Right.
certainly we
As far
don't
as
share
we're
that
aware.
information, and the bids are, all formal bids are due at the city clerk's office by a certain day and time, and then bids are open, so no one would ordinarily know in advance who is planning to bid.
So then it's not likely that we're, being subject to highway robbery, because if people are submitting what they believe to be a competitive bid, they're going to try to be competitive to try to earn the business. Still, I would imagine.
I would think.
And so, although I agree more is better, I also agree that if we take the effort to send packet materials to qualified bidders and they choose not to bid, you can't hold a gun to their head to do it. But so I'm fine with this. I'm supportive of this. I don't know what would make a difference at all on this. But the fact that people believe that they're taking part in a bidding process, I think by definition helps to ensure that people are going to try to sharpen their pencils and give us a good qualified bid. Thank you.
Ms. Lorenz?
Thank you. A couple questions. Do you know how long we've worked with this particular company?
I don't. I believe Mr. Nord asked that same question too, and I don't know if it's in the report. If it is, I've forgotten, so I can go back and look, but I don't.
But it's been a number of years. I mean,
Yes.
this because it's described in the report. We have a good working relationship, and they are located in Bloomington. It's also noted that we have limited storage space at our distribution facility, so proximity to just-in-time materials is key. Do you know if any of the other bidders were as close as Bloomington, or were they further away?
The ones that I'm aware of are further away. They're out of town, some even out of McLean County.
Okay.
But as indicated, as you stated, as I mentioned earlier, this bid package requires delivery of materials within a certain period of time, including after hours, because sometimes our water crews respond after hours to
Right.
water main breaks and need materials.
Right. So while the academic point that I think our colleague is making here is interesting, I think a practical one here would suggest that that the most logical bidder bid, and the others may realize that they are too far away to be able to meet the requirements of the proposal. And from a practical point of view, it makes sense to me. So, thank you.
Further on this item, Mr. Nord?
What efforts were made to ensure that any other potential bidder even received the bid email
The bid email?
or the bid notice that went out? The request for bid? Was there
Mr.
any
Nord,
effort?
I don't know the specific strategies used. I can just indicate or reiterate what's in the council packet report, that we provided the bidding materials to 5 or 6 companies that sell these products.
But we don't know if they actually received them.
I suppose that could be true,
Okay.
given the fact that in the past, water products has been the only bid received in past years. I don't know that 2022's bid process would have necessarily meant that the other eligible companies didn't receive the materials.
Sure, but if we haven't gotten bids for a number of years, we don't know if they're even getting it. I do agree that it's not council's decision for how you operate your staff, whether they put any effort into getting us additional bids or just making sure that only one comes in. But I would think a responsible manager that's looking out for the interests of the taxpayers would try and get numerous bids to help our constituents. So thank you.
I appreciate that comment, Mr. Nord, and I've certainly made a note that you would like to have information on all various prospective bidders on why they're not bidding. And that will be something that we can consider as we move forward in 2022. One of my staff positions is a procurement officer, and maybe we'll have time for somebody to focus on that. So that will be great. In the meantime, if council wants to spend more time discussing this particular bid, I can invite water director forward, who can maybe tell you the information that he knows, if that's significant to making a decision on this particular agenda item. But I think we've hit all the highlights. This is a local business in Bloomington Normal, who's provided good quality service in the past. They were submitted a qualified bid, and we know from experience that they deliver materials and the time required, and we have their pricing locked in for a year. And our staff recommendation remains the same.
I would actually take you up on that offer, because I'd like to hear if he knows why we haven't been getting bids from other folks.
Mayor, would you like water director to come forward?
No, I don't think so.
Wow, offered and denied.
I think that's a discussion you could have with senior staff after this meeting, and I'm frankly offended that you would insinuate that bids were not delivered and that we need to look into that. I find that offensive and insulting to our professional staff.
Ms. Reese offered for the staff member that would be the one that's most in the know to come up and answer these questions. So there is no assumptions.
All right, bring Mr. Burkhardt up here.
The bids were emailed to 6 vendors, and each vendor responded with an email saying that they had received the material.
Did any of them note why they didn't respond?
I did not ask.
Was the bid written that other people could qualify for it?
Qualify as in?
As in, there was not some requirement that only one vendor could possibly meet?
Absolutely not.
We can't write a bid that's just for one person.
Okay, so they just said they received it and no response?
Yep.
All right, then I'm sure you heard, next year, maybe follow up with some of them, see if you can get us at least some other numbers.
I have asked in the past, and the response I got was we chose not to submit a bid.
Do you know if the other close municipalities use the same vendor, or if they use a different vendor?
I know Bloomington uses water products. As for other communities, I don't know. I would assume Danvers, Stanford, small communities like that. I'm not for sure what they do.
Sure, because my issue has nothing to do with this vendor. It's just getting more numbers for comparison is all it is. So Thank you.
Further on this item? Please call the roll.
Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Ms. Cummings?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Mr. Nord?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
Aye. The resolution is approved. Item D is a resolution to appropriate $1 million of motor fuel tax funds for the resurfacing of various streets for the 2022 motor fuel tax street resurfacing project, and authorize the Director of Public Works and Engineering to sign the IDOT general maintenance form.
I so move.
Second.
Mr. Nord?
We have a LiDAR project that was going on to grade the streets. I haven't seen that. I don't know if any of the other council has seen the results from that, but my question is, how does the list of streets that we're resurfacing compare to what the LiDAR project is showing?
The pavement assessment project is not complete. So that's why that information hasn't been shared.
Has it gone along far enough that you've got some insight to see if this generally matches what that assessment program's doing?
I can tell you that this particular recommendation tonight is based upon staff's recommendation and past analysis of pavement.
Okay. Do you know when the LiDAR one's going to be available for for public and council?
I do not know.
Okay. That's all I had.
Further on this item? Please call the roll.
Ms. Cummings?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Mr. Nord?
Aye.
Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
Aye. The resolution is approved. We move to general orders. The first item is a resolution approving the Fifth Amendment to the annexation agreement pertaining to the Vineyard subdivision at the southeast corner of Rab and Airport.
Move approval.
Thank you.
Second.
Is there discussion on this item? Please call the roll.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Mr. Nord?
Aye.
Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Ms. Cummings?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
Aye. Resolution is approved. Item 8 is a resolution approving the Vineyards subdivision Fifth Amended Preliminary Subdivision Plan.
Move approval.
Thank you. Discussion on this item. Please call the roll.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Mr. Nord?
Aye.
Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Ms. Cummings?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
Aye. That resolution is approved. Item 9 is a resolution approving the amended preliminary plan for a portion of the Trails on Sunset Lake subdivision.
Move approval.
Thank you.
Second.
Discussion on this item. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Mr. Nord?
Aye.
Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Ms. Cummings?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
Aye. That resolution is approved. Item 10 is a resolution conditionally approving the final plat for Greystone Field subdivision, 5th edition.
Move approval.
Second.
Discussion, Mr. Nord?
We've got several of these coming through tonight. Is there something that happened? It seems like floodgate was opened or something, because we haven't had all these at once. Is there anything? to explain that?
Developers are ready to move forward on extending their subdivisions. So
Okay.
we've got 3 different subdivisions that just are ready to, they keep phasing their final plats and phasing their additions, and all 3 subdivisions were ready for the next phase.
So it's just by chance they're all
Getting-
happening on the same night rather than,
Well, they all
Circling
went to
through.
planning commission. Planning commission only meets once a month. So after the planning commission meeting, then the next meeting to come to you would be tonight, the second meeting of the month. So that's how the timing is. Many developers are wanting to get going and get ready so they can hit spring with construction.
okay, well, I hope we see more of these at every meeting. Thank you.
Ms. Smith?
If I may, I think one of the major reasons these plans are coming before us is because of Rivian. One of the packets actually referenced how some of the design elements were modified in response to querying Rivian employees about what their desires were, and went from duplexes to single-family homes. And if you look at the timing in the history provided in the packet, it indicates that many of these plans began their development in the early 2000s. I think we all would recognize that in 2008, with the housing crisis, many of those plans were put on hold, and then they hit, even though the rest of the country began to recover in 2014. The State Farm announced that they would be consolidating and creating hubs in 3 southern cities and no longer adding to their corporate location here as they had in the past. So that put a serious brake on it. So I don't think it's any mystery. I think we are having some welcome economic development that is increasing the demand for housing. In fact, by a count provided to me, this adds 69 housing units. A recent article indicated that there was only 25 houses on inventory for sale when they tallied that recently. So I too welcome these plans and hope they continue to come before the council.
I read that same article too, Ms. Smith, and a realtor friend of mine corrected that and said as of yesterday afternoon, there are only 20 houses on the market. Please call the roll.
Mr. Nord?
Aye.
Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Ms. Cummings?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
Aye. The resolution is approved. Item 11 is an ordinance amending the Town of Normal zoning code, section 15.7, having to do with parking and outdoor dining.
Move approval.
Thank you.
Second.
Is there discussion on this item? Mr. Nord?
Will there be any required fees that anyone has to pay to have an outdoor dining spot?
I'm sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you. I don't believe there's an application fee at all. and Ms. Davison is shaking her head, so that is a correct assessment. The only cost would be to the restaurant or the vendor to construct the actual outdoor dining component.
Okay, and then also, this doesn't impact any municipal-owned parking places. This is all strictly private.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Further on this item? Please call the roll.
Might as well stay there.
Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Ms. Cummings?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Mr. Nord?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
Aye. The ordinance is approved. Item 12 is an ordinance amending the Town of Normal zoning code, section 15.7, having to do with parking pads.
Move approval.
Second.
Is there discussion on this item? Please call the roll.
Ms. Cummings?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Mr. Nord?
Aye.
Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
Aye. The ordinance is approved. We've already addressed the new business tonight. We have no public comment post-meeting. So before taking a motion for adjournment, are there comments or concerns? Mr. Nord?
Sure. We don't have, at least I don't believe we have a formal process for residents to submit any ethics complaints. We've got emails that have come through, but there's no formal process for the resident to actually hear a resolution, and to go through that process. So, I would like to see us create some avenue, some process that the public can go through, so they can have some transparency and some resolution to concerns that they may have. Something that I would say we could go off of would be the ICMA has got a document. It's called the Ethics Matter Advice for Public Managers. So, Ms. Reese, you may have seen this, but in it, there's a wealth of information. It says that, one, we should create a culture that encourages individuals, within the organization to raise a red flag when something unethical or illegal is taking place. And that, it says, it recognizes it's a tough sell, but whistleblowing feels like a violation that kindergarten ruled not to be tattletale, or not to be a tattletale. But the lack of certainty about facts and motivations keeps people silent. If you don't know, then you don't speak up. But the consequence of keeping silent can be significant and harmful and put the council and the town in legal jeopardy if we don't have a culture that allows people and welcomes people to speak up. They also have an entire section that talks about why, it's actually called Why You Can't Rely on Your Attorney to Keep You Out of Ethics Trouble. I'll share this with the council, this document, or Ms. Reese, maybe you could forward a copy on. But it says, focusing too heavily on what's legal and your attorney's opinion can cause serious problems for local government managers who wish to be viewed in a positive, ethical light. And this falls back on the council too. It's just, this is written for managers. Sources of the problem, it's got a couple bullet points. It says legal does not mean ethical, and that the ethical bar for those in the public arena is much higher than what is legal. So your attorney may not fully appreciate your ethical obligations. We have a higher bar than what's legal. It says your attorney may not understand your obligations, especially under the ICMA Code of Ethics. It says your attorney may be inclined to tell you what you want to hear. And how to address some of these problems, we need to let our attorney know that we need to give him permission to tell us something that we may not want to hear. Make the attorney aware of all the ethical obligations that we have. And also, it says, get a second opinion. Remember, the attorney does not work for our citizens, doesn't work for our constituents. Client is the town. So, we represent our citizens, which is the other side of the table from our attorney. But the ultimate responsibility falls back on us for ethics. It says we should have an ethics preparedness plan, because it even walks through like how an ethics disaster comes up. It says it starts with a rumor or a report of questionable conduct, and then the second shoe drops when an inside source or diligent reporter press more, and then damaging facts come up later. And then it says the silence is something that really can hurt a town if we don't follow through and take action. Because what we're risking is the trust of our constituents by just turning a blind eye. Some things it says, like one of the big mistakes is it says the cover-up being worse than the crime. Just simply being silent. It could be because we're embarrassed, because staff or us, we feel like we're perfectionists and we can't make mistakes, but mistakes do happen. And to protect us and the public, we just need to be open and transparent. And since the public is bringing up these issues, when they bring them up, if they hear, hey, we talked about this in executive session and we can't speak about it, now there's no transparency there. And that then goes to the trust. We should be open and transparent, and we need some resolution that the public can hear. And I would just say, go back on this document. And I know this is something that the council has to agree to do.
Mr. Nord, you've hit your 5-minute limit.
Thank you. And I would like to see the council go forward at some point.
I see a lot of hands raised, and I'm going to encourage people to not have a discussion about that comment. That's something we can certainly talk about in strategic retreat. Ms. Cummings was first.
I need to encourage our staff after just taking that hard 1-2 punch. I have to say that I am proud to be of this community, and I love the work that this staff has done and continues to do. Especially, I'm someone who uses the trail. And after having been snowed in, and we had some good days, it was, first of all, it was good to get out. And secondly, to be able to run the trail was certainly something that was well received for me. And so I want to say thank you. I know crews had worked late. It was hard keeping the streets clean, one, having blowing snow. And two, we couldn't put the salt down right away because of freezing temperatures. The other thing is I want us to be encouraged, because one thing I noticed, since we are seeing such extremes in weather, roads that we've recently had redone, we are starting to see where that we probably normally would not have. And so don't get discouraged. Be encouraged. I know we're going to still see some more extremes. We'll make sure that, and that's also to our residents, when we can begin to fix those, we will address them. And we are aware, but we live in the Midwest, and we're in a time where we're seeing really some strange weather. It went from being in the 50s one day to -2, I think it got down to at night the next day. So that does have an impact on our roads and our streets. And so we will start to see some imperfections in them, but bear with us. And when spring comes, they will be addressed. I'm sure of that, because we have a phenomenal staff here within the town of Normal.
I just have to comment on that I was clearing my driveway with a snow blower, and I just got done clearing it, and a normal snowplow came in and partially filled it back in. And I remembered what a previous director of public works said, water goes downhill and snow's got to go somewhere. So with that in mind, I completely echo what you just said. Mr. McCarthy.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll start off with echoing that as well. I've got a couple of things to say on this topic. First, I was in a meeting end of last week. Ms. Gataraju was also in that meeting. And a person from another agency at a break in the agenda paused to comment that how fabulous of job the town of Normal had done in snow removal, and how everybody he knows in Normal is commenting about it, and it was all the buzz. And he asked us to specifically provide that feedback back to Ms. Reese, you and the staff, for everything that you're doing, and whatever we're doing, it's being noticed by the community. What a fantastic job snow removal is in the nearly, 18, 20, 22, whatever it's been between the two snowfalls here. So I'm passing that along. The second thing really related to that is, I guess, we do a lot of yay and nay up here. We got a lot of agenda items, and some seem mundane and trivial, and some are controversial and big and large, but they have downstream consequences that we can't always see. And one of those recently was the water department purchasing snow implements for a water department truck, an asset owned and operated by the water department. And it was a little controversial, but not really. But the downstream of that is, as I understand it, that vehicle or that equipment arrived the day before our first snow event. So it was outfitted quickly and borrowed from the water department to be put out in the streets, and was available for snow clearing for the last two events. And as the feedback from our community is telling us, is that we're very fortunate to have that piece of equipment in operation and being lent out to other departments. And so I just want to say a couple of things. Is first, the plan to share assets between departments is saving taxpayers money. I asked the question about what would it have cost to just buy another truck if the streets department had to do it, and it was over $200,000 for a vehicle that size. And so by sharing assets across departments, we're being highly efficient. Town staff, to be clear, town staff is being efficient with resources, and we're improving the quality of life of our residents by doing this. And so, Ms. Reese and staff, your recommendations are making a difference in the quality of life of our residents here, and that's excellent work, and in my book, highly competent and worthy of high praise. Thank you.
Ms. Smith.
I have to push back and say that I find there's a big difference between a red flag and a false flag. And to repeat innuendo as if it were fact is very discouraging to a town staff that works extremely hard. As many have noted, the snow clearance is exceptional in Normal. The report from the city manager is that the goal was to clear all streets, at least one pass, in 24 hours. And I believe that was achieved. When I was down the street helping a neighbor with his driveway, and we saw a pickup truck going by with a snowplow, he commented on, he says, I guess they've got all hands on deck if they're sending out a pickup truck and not the big rigs. And that was early in our previous storm. And This time, town staff responded to the emergency on I-39, and today I witnessed a truck patching asphalt on Vernon while the weather is nice, so that the town is responsive, they're responsible, and I just want to commend them for the work that they do and recognize that the quality of individuals we have here is exceptional, and I'm proud to be associated with them. Thank you.
Further?
Mayor.
Ms. Reese?
Thank you. Just a couple of things. I appreciate council's comments. I do want to publicly thank all of our snow removal crews who have been very busy during the month of February. That includes the Public Works, the entire Public Works Department, Water Department, Parks and Recreation, the Parks Division of Parks and Recreation, and Facilities Management, who are all been outside taking care of snow and ice removal operations. So they've done a great job, and I think the plan this year that we tried a little bit differently, we've always said, you know, yesterday was good, what can we do better tomorrow? And I think the snow removal operation has been very successful. So thanks to them, and I appreciate your kudos to that team as well. The other thing I did want to mention, it came up earlier when we heard from the youth on the Vision 2045 plan, the monarchs, and I appreciated that comment very much. And I just wanted to point out, I know we've mentioned this before, but Mayor Coos has initiated the Mayor's Monarch Pledge for at least a few years. And we've been a member, the town of Normal has been a member of the National Wildlife Foundation's Mayor's Monarch Pledge for a few years. And we submit a plan every year through our Parks and Recreation Department on what we do to promote monarchs. And so I think that hearing Drew's comments earlier this evening about the significance of monarchs and your comments, Mr. Nord, I just wanted to take a moment to remind council that we are part of the National Wildlife Foundation Mayor's Monarch Pledge. And then
We're actually a charter member.
Yeah. So I knew it's been at least a few years, but I'm not sure how long we've been a member. So I appreciate that. And every year Parks and Rec submits a report on what they've done to the National Wildlife Foundation and what they intend to do the next year to support monarchs. The third thing I just want to mention, and it seems to be the topic that never ends, is ethics. I've told council numerous times in the last few years, I serve on my professional association's committee on professional conduct. So I'm very familiar with the Code of Ethics through the International City and County Management Association. I've served on the Professional Conduct Committee for quite a few years, I think at least 10, if not more. So I'm very familiar with the materials that Mr. Nord keeps raising from ICMA. Of course, ICMA is relevant to members of ICMA, of which members in this organization would be Mr. Hansen and myself. And we commit to those Code of Ethics. Certainly, I feel like there's some confusion on how this organization values ethics, and we've talked about it. We've even had a special meeting about some ethics issues in the last year. So I don't want to harp on that, but I do want to indicate that as an elected body, as has been said numerous times in the past, if you have a legitimate concern regarding ethics pertaining to any town staff member, or me especially, it is council's role to notify me of any ethical concerns regarding staff. And certainly the mayor will notify me if there's any ethical concerns regarding me, and we will have a conversation about your concerns in executive session. That's your role as an elected body. When there is legitimate concerns regarding ethics, we have, in fact, used outside counsel. And Mr. Nord, your comment that, you know, there could be a conflict and we shouldn't pay attention, or maybe we shouldn't value the role of our legal counsel in evaluating ethics concerns. We have a very strong practice of trying to avoid, I understand, I'm very familiar with that. I'm responding to your comments, however. in reminding council in this public setting that we have a very strong practice of using outside legal counsel, because there are very frequent accusations, insinuations of conflicts of interest or incompetency in making determinations regarding ethical issues. And so we do seek outside assistance to make sure that we are not being, or to make sure that we are being thorough and having objective review of these situations. So the only other thing I'll mention in conclusion in that particular matter is there are occasions, and council is aware of them because there have been numerous emails, but there are occasions when just because I don't tell a citizen what they want to hear doesn't mean that I'm not being transparent or that we are ignoring the citizen. So just want to make that clear. There have been numerous emails, only from a couple of folks really. And you know, at some point I just have to say, look, I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear, and the issue is closed. And then we just need to move on. And if council's concerned, if there's a legitimate matter that we need to discuss in private because we're talking about people's livelihoods, then we will do that in private. Thank you.
Thank you. Motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Mr. Nord?
Aye.
Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Ms. Cummings?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
Aye, we are adjourned.